Welcome back. Let's check the price of oil this morning. About an hour and a half before, well, about 45 minutes before the opening bell sounds. Crude oil is down 0.75%, sitting at $70.17 a barrel. President Trump declaring a national energy emergency as part of his plan to push for more oil and gas production, and is reversing much of what the Biden administration did on their climate change agenda. Last night, the president called for the return of the Keystone XL Pipeline, writing this on Truth Social, quote, "The company building the Keystone XL Pipeline that was viciously jettisoned by the incompetent Biden administration should come back to America and get it built now. The Trump administration is very different. Easy approvals, almost immediate start, if not them, perhaps another pipeline company. We want the Keystone XL Pipeline built," writes the president. South Bow, the company which owns the pipeline, told Fox Business, quote, "We've moved on from the Keystone XL project. We continue to engage with customers to develop options to increase Canadian oil supplies to meet growing U.S. demand." Joining me now is Lipow Oil Associates President Andy Lipow. Andy, good to see you. What is your take on this? How important is that XL pipeline? What needs to be done, do you think, to meet the demands under President Trump?
Well, good morning, Maria. I think that really for South Bow, there's a lot of hurdles that it's got to overcome. First of all, about a year ago, Canada expanded its pipeline capacity to deliver more crude oil to the area of Vancouver on the Pacific side. But Trump's threatens tariffs of 10% on Canadian energy has forced the Canadian producers to actually start looking at reviving projects that are 10 years old to build additional pipeline capacity to both the Pacific side and to the Atlantic side. So we really have two competing interests here, being that President Trump would like to see more pipeline capacity to deliver that increased amount of energy to the United States. But on the other hand, he's penalizing Canadian oil producers through the use of tariffs.
Yeah, I understand that, and we're likely going to see those tariffs materialize within the next week. The president pretty much confirmed that yesterday. But I would argue that the most important policy coming out of the energy portion of the Trump administration is the easier permitting. I mean, when you talk with oil executives today, they will tell you that they had the hardest time actually moving forward and progressing under the Biden administration because it was impossible to get a permit. Trump is trying to change all that.
Well, I certainly would agree with you there, and we can see it from opening up additional acreage, whether it's in Alaska or the Gulf of Mexico, because that's where the oil is, to easing the regulations for when you're drilling onshore, and that also includes the permitting of new pipelines as well as export facilities. We just saw the Trump administration last week approve a major crude oil export facility that has the capacity of 2 million barrels a day. We also saw in the last 2 weeks the Trump administration approving an LNG export facility that enables us to get more natural gas to the world oil markets. So these are all policies that the oil industry is certainly in favor of.
Okay, the tariffs. Now, you said that's one of the issues that is undermining the positive portions of this new policy. But, Andy, how do you push back if other countries are charging more for imports?
Well, I think that if we have an imbalance on trade. First of all, on the energy side, the U.S. is fortunate in that we're already exporting about 4 million barrels a day of crude oil, and we're the largest LNG exporter in the world. And of course, on that standpoint, we are, influencing the oil markets. But to your point, when we do see China imposing 10% tariffs on U.S. crude oil and LNG imports, of course, that causes this trade imbalance that President Trump is very much against.
All right. So the fact that President Trump has this idea to drill, baby, drill, put more oil and gas on the market, doesn't that lead to expectations that oil prices are going down? This is the president's plans to rein in inflation. Crude oil's at $70 a barrel. Andy, what are your predictions in terms of where it will be 1 year from today?
Well, I think at $70 a barrel, it makes it very difficult for oil companies to drill, baby, drill. However, if the Trump administration imposes policies that reduce the cost of drilling, that lowers their break-even cost, you could see more oil added to the market. I think a year from now, we're still looking at crude oil prices in the $75 to $80 a barrel range, which is a little bit higher than we're seeing now. But that is really being driven by poor economic growth in China at the same time that we're seeing over 5 million barrels a day of spare capacity in OPEC Plus, who, by the way, has a meeting next week where I expect that they once again are going to defer the restoration of their voluntary production cuts because they're simply looking at a low oil price.
Great point all around. All right, Andy, good to have you this morning. Thanks so much.